Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Fine Print podcast, hosted by yours truly, Tiffany Fine. I learned a lot about myself yesterday when I did the first episode. I have never edited and done any of that, and I realized my patience level for any of that is like none. Absolutely no patience to do the editing. If I say I'm not deleting it, deal with it. I don't care. I There's all these apps that you can do all this stuff. And I tried doing some of it yesterday, and if finally I gave up and I was like, you know what, we're just going to post this and see what happens. So I think that's just what we're going to go with. I think a lot of the times I'm just going to use the camera on my phone. Like, all this nonsense to just get a message out there seems silly. But the perfectionist in me, of course, wanted to try after almost crying and then deciding, okay, nope, not doing it. So we're going to do unfiltered, unedited, just having fun with this. I have no idea what that's going to look like. And I'm sure I'm going to make a fool out of myself at some point in time. But, with the second episode, I was suggested by several different people to tell you a little bit more about myself and a little bit more about my background. So that's not necessarily my favorite part of this, but it is important to know because I've overcome a lot of adversity, you guys. And there's times when I'm training people and they're complaining and they're going through certain things. And I have to remind myself that they're not me. They didn't go through what I went through. They, this is a big deal to them because a lot of times what I do, and I think to myself, is like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. Like, get it together, bro. Like, this is not that serious. But to them, it is. And to other people, it is. And I've had to learn and train myself to make sure to keep myself accountable, right? That not everyone had my experience. And there are things that are just as significant to them as those things were to me. So, and where I'm going with this is when I was 14, I was kicked out of the house. So I was living, on the streets. I slept on the beach. I wasn't always homeless. I mean, a teenage girl, it's not that difficult to get taken in. My best friend's parents took me in. Um, I ran around with a lot of bad people. And, when you don't have anyone watching out for you, you do all kinds of stuff and you meet all kinds of crazy people. Most of my tattoos are from people that were out of prison. I was engaged to the president of a motorcycle club when I was 18 years old until he went to prison. And then I got his initials tattooed on the back of my neck. That was super fun. And then after I got the initials, I broke up with him, like, I think about 3 months later. So then I told everyone that the tattoo meant something different. I mean, I've made some ridiculous mistakes throughout my life. The funniest part about it is you'd never know. I mean, I don't think so. Looking at me, hearing me, how I work with all of these dealer principals, and they're going to watch this and they're going to be like, "Wow, she really is crazy." But yeah, I ran really wild when I was younger, to the point where when I turned 19, I decided, okay, no more. We're not doing anything. We're going to, like, so straight and narrow to the point where, I did not take anything at all that affected me from the neck up until I was 32 years old. And I let myself have a cocktail because I had done plenty of partying in my high school days. I mean, I partied like up until 19 before I was even able to legally drink. But, and then I took in custody of a teenager when I was in my early 20s. You know, that was probably one of the most incredible experiences. Having kids of my own was never a priority, especially after seeing the group homes and the children's homes and the foster homes that she was in. I saw how many children there were that didn't have homes. And it kind of blew my mind. And I thought to myself, I can't imagine procreating when there's so many that are on the planet that don't have homes. Let me just, so I wound up taking in strays. It's kind of, it wound up being my thing. I took in strays for years. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just, if you told me a sad story, I was like, come with me, kid. I'm going to save you. And unfortunately, statistically speaking, there's not a lot of success stories with those types of people. And that's why for me, I have to remind myself because I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm like, yeah, I don't think about my past, but it's huge for me to overcome and go from being homeless to sitting in executive meetings and being asked to hold, you know, sales meetings for corporations and train and facilitate some of the amazing things that I do and get to work alongside incredible people from what I come from, un like shouldn't happen at all. And my heart goes out to any of the teenagers and any of the young women and young men that didn't make it out of that. Because it is very difficult. I definitely went pretty hardcore as far as the straight edge. I wasn't willing to toe the line at all. By the age of 32, though, when I decided to let myself have a cocktail, I was nervous. I was even in therapy at the time, and I was like, is this a good idea? Like, I I don't know. Like, what if I turn into an alcoholic and I just like ruin my entire life? So I went through that very cautiously, and I very mindful of what I was doing and making sure that it was me doing what's best for me. I'm going to allow myself to do these things. And it's carried those types of decisions and those types of things that I've gone through my life have absolutely affected my career. I have worked with some finance managers that were struggling with a pill problem. And I can uniquely identify those issues and have empathy for it and figure out what the route is to either get them help, or if they don't want help, know how to navigate that personality so that we can bring out the best in them regardless of their situations. And believe it or not, those of you in the car business, like we have plenty of very interesting people that have some vices that are very unfortunate, right? And so that's actually something I deal with on a regular basis. I don't think there's a dealership group that I go into that doesn't have someone there that has some kind of vice that is affecting their career one way or another. So I'm uniquely qualified to help through that. So little my background, it doesn't define who I am. I hardly ever think about it. What I do think about is all of the young women that I've hopefully made some kind of impact on, even if they didn't do much with it, which is always really sad, right? Teenage girls are a huge pain in the ass, by the way. Like it is a whole lot of work. And then for them not to do anything with it, you're just like, well, we fought and you threw things at me and you cried and it was for no reason. Okay, cool. Cool story, bro. Like it's very unfortunate, right? But I do think about that quite often, but I don't think about my past or where I come from or, living on the streets as a kid. Like it feels like I'm telling someone else's story, even when I talk about it, just because I've come so far from that and it was so long ago. But I want anyone out there that's listening, that's going through anything, if you have vices that you're struggling with, that self-awareness is really important, right? Like that I notice it within myself. I struggled with an eating disorder for years and started a company while in the throes of it. So, that's the human element of this. We can succeed in business and be messy. And I am a living proof of it. I've been very messy and I have still been able to succeed. I've also failed while being messy and knowing that a lot of those vices and a lot of the things that I was struggling with were causing me to have failures in my career. So just stepping back out and looking at that is a huge part of what we do. And if there's anything that I've said today that helps you, this is not my comfort zone. I would much rather be talking to dealer principals and picking their brains about what they've had success with and what they have not had success with. But the origin story and knowing who it is that you're listening to, I think is very important as well. Again, don't hold it against me. I mean, if you do, I guess I don't really fucking care anyway. But at the end of the day, please like, subscribe, follow all of the things. This is going to be raw, completely unedited. I'm just literally going to press stop and upload it into the ether and we'll just see what happens. So please join me on the journey. I can't wait. I am going to be filming every single day and don't even know and don't have a plan on what I'm going to be filming, and we're just going to do it anyway. So hope you guys have a good day